Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business of Business podcast. I'm Roy. So today we have an awesome financial voice to come speak with us today. I think it's important we talk about the mechanics of business and doing this and doing that, but we also need to think about ourselves and our savings because when we're entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, small businesses, we may not have access to the big 401ks and other vehicles that some corporate employees have. So we're fortunate enough today to have the Millennial Money Woman, also known as Fiona, coming on the show to talk to us about a few things. And I think this is important because we were kind of joking about this, but I want us to take her serious because it's not somebody that had just kind of like Googled finance yesterday and decided to come on and talk. She has earned her Certified Financial Planner, CFP, which is a very high-end designation in the finance industry and very difficult to pass the test. Also, she is a chartered retirement planning counselor, and she has her Master's of Science in Personal Finance Planning. So, with all that said, Fiona, welcome to the show, and I can't wait to hear all the great advice you have for us today.
Roy, thank you so
Yeah,
much for having me on the
you
show.
bet.
And I'm really looking forward to talking to you
You
about some
you
retirement
bet.
advice.
So why don't before we get too far into the talking about the vehicles and we're going to talk a little bit about active and passive investing as well. But why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got here? I know that in our previous conversation that you bought your first house by the time you're 23 and had no debt except for the mortgage itself, which that is a huge feat nowadays. Back in my day, it was a much easier task. But kind of tell us a little bit about how you got to this point.
Sure, I'd love to. So I guess I'm going to start out actually where I kind of got my passion for finance. And that started out at a pretty young age, actually. And so I would say I was roughly 6 to 10 years old.
Wow.
And yeah, I know, right? But it actually started from my grandparents. They were my total idol. I looked up to them in everything they did. And so to give you a little bit of context, my grandparents, they started a business together, my grandmother and my grandfather, and they built it from the ground up. Worked every single day. It wasn't a major business. It was your everyday business essentially. However, I saw that it was basically their baby, right? They put in all
Right.
their time, effort, sweat equity, you name it, into this business. And when I was roughly 12, 13 years old, something unfortunate happened due to poor financial planning. In other words, my grandparents, I think, mortgaged their house and a couple of other assets. So, long story short, they went bankrupt and they
Oh.
literally lost everything that they had put into this
Oh
business and
my
their
gosh.
lives.
That's terrible.
It really was. And at that point, they were probably early 70s, late 60s, something like that. And at that time, obviously employment is, you're basically, unless you employ yourself at that age, it's very difficult to find employment
Right.
due to your age and learn a new skill. So I saw them pour in every single cent into this business, lose everything and probably more. And that's how they essentially passed away, right? They did not have a single cent to their name, although they put so much work into this business. And when
Right.
I saw that, I never wanted that to happen to me, my family, or anyone else that I could help ever again. And that was probably when I was in my early teenage years. And although I didn't really know, the full ins and outs of finance like I do now, that was the starting point to my wanting to delve into that financial world so I can really help others understand finance, plan better for their financial future, and never again have something like that happen to them. So
Right.
that was the genesis. And then, like you said, I went to college, I studied finance. I was lucky and fortunate enough to understand that student debt is uh, not beneficial. So I was able to actually shorten my college career to 2 years. I worked 40 plus hours a week on top of taking the maximum class load, and I graduated at 20 and started my career. And that's how I was able to kind of get that small jump start ahead of my classmates, get into that working world, and save up enough money for that 20% down payment for my house at 23. It was just that planning.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point of kind of why I wanted you on the show to talk about this. Is as I said in the intro, is a lot of times business people, especially like I said, the solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and small businesses with 10, 20 employees, we are so caught up in the I guess the minutia of what's happening in the business at that day. We don't think about that, and that was a tragic story that they lost everything, but it's not uncommon. Businesses change, we don't keep up with things, and then we get to some point in time and it's just over with, and the business is not worth anything. We haven't saved anything, and it can be treacherous. And then kind of the not so tragic part of all of that is that, even if you have a thriving business, if you're a solopreneur and where it depends upon you, you get to the end of time and you're like, hey, I want to retire. Nobody wants to buy the business because it's in your name. Basically it's your name is where the value is, not necessarily the service. So, but if you haven't put anything aside, you've got nothing to retire. You end up having to, either work till you die or, as you said, get a menial job because, when you're 60, 65 years old, it is difficult to go out and market yourself just to get a regular job somewhere.
That's exactly right. And unfortunately, we see it all too often that, as you go into that retirement stage, even age 40, 50, 60, you realize, looking back, oh my goodness, I should have saved. I should have been a little bit more cognizant of how much I'm putting away toward retirement savings. And
right.
Just to share a very quick story, Roy, I was counseling a client actually the other day. She was just turning, I believe it was 71 or 72 years old. She and her husband ran a successful printing business in Chicago. And however, this one statement she told me during our conversation, it was so poignant. It just left a lasting impression. And she said, my past is catching up with me. And that basically reflects back on them investing everything into their business, which was extremely successful, but they never took the time or energy or effort, I guess, to put some money into savings and retirement. So, in the end, they have, a few $100,000, but it's not going to cut it, at age 70. So she needs to go back to work just relative to their lifestyle. So
right.
Definitely you made a great point. You've got to save early.
Yeah, and that there's another fallacy. I worked in kind of in the financial advising sector back, it's been 25, 30 years ago. And even back then, there was this fallacy that, when I retire, I only need 20 or 30, 40, 50% of my income to live on. Mm-hmm. And, that was kind of the running joke is, well, no, technically, you're probably going to need about 125%, 150%, because when you retire, especially in the early days, people don't want to just, a lot of times if you've planned it and you're in good health, you don't want to just sit around and watch Judge Judy all day long. I mean, people want to get out. They've been wanting to travel. They've been so tied up with this business that they couldn't do vacations. So now it's like, hey, we're going to travel, but it costs money. I mean, you can't retire on 50% income and expect that you're going to be able to retire. And when I say income, you could have a lot of assets, but they generate so much income for you every month. So, you've got to have something in order to keep up if you want to have an active and lively retirement.
Absolutely. I mean, I was laughing earlier because I'm the one that's actually watching Judge Judy now every day. And I'm telling you, Roy, I do not want to watch Judge Judy when I'm 65 right. or 70.
Yeah, we were on vacation last week and we were flipping some channels, and it's like they had 3 channels with her on all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're in Judge Judy purgatory right now. That's all we can get.
That is too funny.
Well, let's talk about first off. Let's talk about the active and passive of investing, because I think whether you want to invest in one of these retirement accounts or not, you should. But if you choose to just do regular some kind of regular investing, regular brokerage account, the active and passive will still work for you. And then if you want to take advantage of some of these other accounts, we can talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about active and passive management. So I guess I'll start out by saying that, especially for those that I've encountered from the young professional generation, so we're talking about 21 to perhaps age 40 or a little bit over age 40, there's this common fallacy that I at least hear talking to the clients that I coach, and that is that active management, in other words, day trading, right? So like really focusing on your stocks every single day, trying to make those trades to really time the market, is beneficial to retirement savings. And as we have that first couple of, first minutes of conversation, I really hear that a lot of people believe active management is the way to go.
Wow.
In other words, spending like 30+% of your day focusing on your investment portfolio, be it retirement or just a regular investment account. And that's really not the case. And especially with younger folks out there, I think it's really important to educate them about what active and passive management is. So let me start out by kind of showing the difference.
Okay.
Active, kind of like I said before, is really focusing on almost a daily basis or weekly basis even at your investment accounts and trying to essentially time the market to make sure you sell high and buy low. That would be the ideal world. But unfortunately, not many of us have a crystal ball. So that's really not going to happen. And actually, I found this really interesting statistic. And it says that essentially missing out on just 5 key days in the market over a period of 13,870 days of investing, so that's about 38 years, that would leave your portfolio, your investment portfolio, lower or by 30% less.
Yes.
That's just unbelievable, right? I mean, so the fact that you're trying to be in and out of the market over a 38-year period and just missing 5 days, that could cause your portfolio returns to drop by 35%, which is just insane.
Yeah.
And, moving on to that even more, if you missed the 50 best days, so not 5, the 50 best days, your portfolio would be by 91% smaller than if you had just left that money in the stocks the entire time.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just... No,
I was just going to say, that's one thing that, we used to preach. It's not timing the market, it's time in the market. And it's such an important distinction to make.
That's exactly right, Roy. And I really like how you said that. It's not timing the market, it's the time in the market. And that's absolutely true. I mean, in reality, there's a investment strategy that's known as dollar cost averaging. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And what that means is basically you want to purchase shares of a high quality, low cost stock, or my preference is an index fund, right? So we're talking maybe S&P 500 index fund, something like that. And you literally just purchase those shares consistently, regardless of what the market is doing, right? So you're basically buying more shares when prices are cheap because it's a consistent purchase price, and that will ultimately boost your long-term investor returns. So to give an example, over the last 50 years, the S&P 500 has generated roughly a 7% return. So that means if you had started, when you're, let's say 25 years old or 30 years old, and you just, set it and forget it. So you buy stocks consistently every week, every month, whatever it is, for 40 years, let's say, your working career, and you open up your portfolio at the end when you retire, chances are you'll definitely be a millionaire, if not more. It just depends on how much you buy and what you buy. The point is, though, it will save you so much time and so much stress if you do not open that portfolio every single day or every week, right, and monitor the performance of the stocks and worry about it. It's just not worth your time and energy. I would focus on other things. So big picture really here is, I want to go back to what a 1973 economist said once from Princeton University. His name was Burton Malkiel. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. But essentially, Burton said that a blindfolded monkey throwing darts at the stock listings could do as well as an investment professional, right? So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. Well, one of my finance professors, and love to tell the story because he was a maniac. I mean, finance was his life, and this was back in the day before we actually had air conditioning in all the classes. So I took a summer class with him. The windows are open. It's hot. He's in a dress shirt. He sweated this dress shirt through to where he's just soaking wet. Chalk dust is flying. He's up against the board. So when he gets out of this class, he's a mess. He looks like Pigpen from the Charlie Brown, with this cloud of chalk dust following him around. And so, one of his favorite sayings was that bears can make money, bulls can make money, but hogs get slaughtered. And, kind of the point of that is that you are not going to be able to pick it at its lowest low, or you're not going to be able to get out from under it at the highest of the highs. You just can't. So you've got to find other strategies, because information in this business is key. But believe me, by the time you as a general public get information, it's old in investment terms. I mean, if it's more than 5 seconds, it's old news, and somebody's already, nowadays with the computer trading, somebody's already traded off of it, and you're going to be left holding the bag. So definitely get in there and, find some good, like you said, a good index fund, and just put it on that autopilot, just invest in it. The nice thing is, they do the rebalancing for you when that's all necessary. You don't even have to think about that.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, it's so hands off, just staying in the stock market, sticking to your plan. It's just so much more beneficial than if you were to pull money out. Like, for example, I was talking to a client probably a few months ago, back in March. That's right, back in March of 2020, when we had the stock market down, right?
Right.
I mean, oh my gosh, right? Hair was flying. It was just crazy, obviously, especially for almost retirees, right? I mean, if you're late 50s, early 60s, you're getting ready to retire, and all of a sudden you see your portfolio just plummet by, 10, 20, 30%, depending on how you were allocated. That can be like a heart in your mouth type of moment. And it was interesting because there were a few clients who were on the ledge, and they were calling up and they're like, sell everything. I'm not going to stand this. But at that moment, you're already in the negative, right? I mean, you don't want to lock in those losses. Chances are, at least historically speaking, the stock market has always rebounded after a drop. So we're going to try to, stick the course, stick to the plan. And that's kind of what, younger folks or, those entrepreneurs out there that are listening to this podcast, that's what I think you guys should do too, or at least consider doing, is just sticking your course. Even if it goes down, a day, a month, a week, a year, possibly, you stick to your course and keep buying, stick to that plan.
Yeah, and I wished I had pulled this up. I didn't, but we had talked a little bit about one example that we used to have was their two sisters that, I guess they were twins. So at the same age, one of them gets out of college, immediately starts investing, putting a little bit back 401k. The other one, she was kind of the party girl. She was out traveling and buying this and doing that. So as they go through time, the one that's been investing, I think she, like around 32, 34, somewhere in there, she decides to settle down, have a family, quits investing altogether, never does any more. The other girl waits till she's like 34, 35, finally settles down and begins investing. And I think the moral of the story is at age 65, they both have the same amount of money available to them. So, again, the moral of the story, it's with the time value of money, getting into it earlier and doing something, even if it's not as much as you want, doing very minimal amounts will add up, over 40 or 50 years.
Well said. Yep. I know the example that you're talking about, and that is 100% true.
Yeah.
The earlier, the better.
Yeah, because I used to deal with, people my age even at that time is like, well, I'm going to get to this investing, but, I just, not right today. And then about a week later, I get a phone call. hey, I just got this new boat. You want to go out to the lake and go for a boat ride? I'm like, yeah, well, that money could have been going in your savings here. And, it's always tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. We want the fun stuff today, and we want to
Yep.
kick that investment down the road. But it's so important to start young. And, there's a lot of good things you can do to teach your kids that. We used to have we got like a Tupperware plate that had it was divided into three compartments. And so we would, if they got money for stuff, we would always have them do their spending money, their tithing to the church, and then their savings. And, try to instill that money has to have value even from being a young child. It's very important.
That's absolutely right. I mean, especially the younger they are and the more the parents are able to instill those investing values, it's really a positive impact on the child's overall, I think, financial sense. And there's actually a website when I was young, I want to say I was about 13 years old, I entered this investment competition with the vice principal of my middle school.
Oh, wow. Nice.
I mean, it was fake money,
Yeah.
but it was this website called howthemarketworks.com. And I just pulled it up, and it's an awesome stock market game. It's completely free. And basically kids, are able to be exposed to how you type in a ticker symbol, how a portfolio online looks like, what the information is that you're going to be looking at when you look at a company online. Like you can look where the buy button is, where the sell button is, like all of those buttons, they're in this game. And it was so, so, so beneficial for me. When I first started out, I mean, like we were given, I think it was $100,000 of fund money to invest. But you want to be able to teach your kids what actually is an investment account. How
Right.
does it look like? And this was a really cool start for my growth. And I've seen other clients use this for their kids as well. And it's super helpful, even if they just spend like 10 minutes on it a day.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth it. And for the record, for those of you who are wondering, I did win the investment.
Oh, nice.
Principal. And he gave me a free Sunday ice cream. So that was my reward.
That's awesome. So, yeah, and the other thing to I guess that would be good to talk about now before we move on to the vehicles is the fees, because, back in the old days, man, you got clipped 5% just about anywhere you went. But now there are a lot of options, but there are a lot of hidden fees as well. So we need to talk about, there's upfront fees, there's the back end loads, and then there is the maintenance fee that you pay every year. So you want to kind of address those just a little bit?
Yeah, I'd love to. And I think this is something that a lot of people actually don't really understand. It all starts out, and honestly, I didn't know about this either. I really like focusing on what's known as an expense ratio, right? So this is essentially a type of fee that you see in whatever fund you decide to buy. And it's basically designed to measure how much of an investment fund's assets are attributed toward various expenses. So in plain English, that means, an expense ratio essentially refers to how much of your invested money will be going toward the investment fund's expenses versus how much of your money will actually stay invested and continue to grow.
Okay.
So to show you a little bit of oversight, there's this website called Morningstar. I use it myself very often, and it actually provides a really good overview visually too, for those of you who are visual earners, as it relates to how much a fund actually costs. And that cost, again, is known as an expense ratio. A lot of funds are, I've seen funds probably 1% to all the way 3% cost. That's a lot, okay? There are funds out there, however, that are very low in terms of expense ratios. We're talking 0.03%. That's also known as 3 basis points, or 0.05%, 5 basis points. That's very inexpensive. The lower your expense ratio is, the less money that you are investing is actually going to that fund or going to that mutual fund, whatever you're invested in. That means more of your money actually stays with you and is being invested. There are companies out there like Vanguard, for example, and Fidelity too. I mean, there are many companies out there. You just have to do your research, but Vanguard's the first one that comes to my mind. And their expense ratios are actually very, very cheap. They're inexpensive. And the reason why I bring this up, and I have this conversation a lot with the clients that I mentor, is that if you pay attention to your investment or to your expense ratios, over 30 years of consistently investing in the same product, an expense ratio difference of just 0.50%, so that's 0.5%, 50 basis points or more, can make a difference of over $1 million in your pocket.
Wow.
In that time frame. So
That's
30
huge.
years, it's exactly, it's enormous. You're literally, if you're looking at the investments you have in your portfolio after you listen to this podcast, take a look at those expense ratios, right? So if you see something for 1.5%, try to look in the stock market or in the account that you have available to you in the funds that you can invest in, and see if you can find something cheaper. Because again, over 3 decades, 30 years, if you reduce that by just 0.5 percentage point, you are going to be putting over $1 million in your pocket. It's so important to be cognizant of this. And I think not that many people, unfortunately, know about this. And I think this is one of the biggest kept secrets out there.
Yeah, and the other thing is you have to be careful, when you're working with advisors, because you always have to think about how they get paid. I mean, they do that because they can make money at it, and it shouldn't be a secret. Nothing is free, but also look at the commissions that you are charged through your brokerage, because there are some, and I hate to run it down, but there's some investments that carry very, very high fees on them, that the reason that they carry those is because the broker gets most of that. So you kind of have, it's very, very important to look at that and not just take somebody's word that this is the best avenue for you, especially if you don't know them that well. Always get that expense ratio just to make sure.
Yeah, you make a great point, Roy. I mean, I've seen so many times when clients come over and they show me their actual investment portfolio, and I look into the individual stocks that are in this portfolio, or mutual funds, whatever it is. Oftentimes, those advisors that are living off of a commission, right? So again, a commission is they make a percentage of whatever you invest, or whatever that is,
Right.
however that commission structure is. You'll likely see a lot of your investments will be in their company's funds, right? So there is, company A, that's where you are with your advisor, and company A actually manages a couple of funds, like company A index fund, company A, etc. fund. Chances are a lot of your investments will be in those funds, and that means more money for them, right? Higher
Right.
commission. So just take a look through your investment portfolio, make sure that what you are invested in is not just suitable for you, but it is actually the exact fit for you. And this brings us to the next topic, which I think is really important to know, that, you want to make sure you are with an advisor or a manager that is a fiduciary, right? So a fiduciary is someone that truly, by law, so they are governed by law to do whatever is in your best interest. So that means if there is investment A and investment B, investment A, they're very similar, but investment A means that advisor would get a small commission, but investment B is a little bit better for you. They would have to, by law, put you in investment B. That means no commission for the advisor, but you would be getting that better investment for your personal situation. So, just make sure that you really understand everything, the entire picture, before you go to an investment advisor and financially commit. And I'm not saying that investment advisors who are not fiduciaries are bad. Chances are they probably aren't. They're probably very good, but just make sure you do your due diligence before financially committing.
Right, exactly. Well, so let's talk for a minute about, let's get back to our small businesses and some of the vehicles that, we had talked about, that they can use if they don't have, they're not big enough to have access to a 401k. There are some other ways that you can shield some of your money from too high of taxes.
Definitely, yeah. So I'm definitely happy to talk about these employment plans. And specifically, I looked up a list here. I have a list in front of me, and there are for, your everyday entrepreneur. But I also have, at the end of the conversation, I'd love to go into depth also for those who perhaps are earning a little bit more, those middle-aged folks. So we're talking 40, 50, 60 years old that are earning actually a pretty substantial sum because they've had their business
Okay.
for a very long time and they are successful. So, but let's start out with the smaller self-employment plans for the newer entrepreneurs. So there are a couple ones out there, and there are so many to choose from, but I'll try to boil it down into just a few options. So before we actually go into the self-employment plans, obviously I want to rephrase that. There is your everyday traditional IRA, right? And that's $6,000 of contributions you can do if you're under 50, 7,000 if you're over 50 or older. And then there's your Roth IRA. Anyone can contribute to these. You can be employed, you can be self-employed, as long as you have earned income, you can contribute to these.
Okay.
However, if you want to move on to larger plans, and let's say you have more income and you want to be able to take advantage, that tax advantage, and can move more than that $6,000 or $7,000 contribution limit annually for the traditional or Roth IRA, then there are several other options. And I'll start from smallest to largest. So the smallest option is actually going to be your simple IRA or your simple 401k. So let me explain a little bit about that. So the simple IRA, it stands short for Savings Incentive Match Plan for Employees. And what that means is you can essentially, as the employer, contribute $13,500 to your plan. It's really good for businesses with less than 15 employees. If you have more than 15 employees, you probably want to take a look at your 401k plan. And it's also good for employers who want to contribute between $6,000 to $25,000 per year. Otherwise, if it's less than $6,000, if you want to contribute less than $6,000, you want to go to your regular IRA, right? Why set up a simple plan? If it's more than $25,000, you might want to look at other options that are like a SEP IRA, for example. But simple IRAs, they're literally like traditional IRAs. They're very similar. They're very easy to set up, just like the name says, simple IRA. There are tax advantages for the employers because the contributions, they're considered as a deduction, as a business expense. And then employees can also contribute. And I think that's important to know. Simple IRAs, they're good for both employer and employee contributions. So the only thing is that these contributions, they are lower, right? Like I said, so 13,500. And if you're age 50 or over, employees can also contribute 3,000 in addition to that. So it's very small. It's not that much. However, the employer can contribute 3% of annual salary for employees if the employer wants to. There are a lot of other tax codes that go into it, and I don't want to go all that in depth. However, this is a plan for, like I said, businesses with less than 15 employees and business owners that have a little bit of excess income and want to contribute to their employees' retirement plans. So this is a really good option. I've seen a couple of clients use the simple IRA. Not that many. A lot of people actually opt for the SEP IRA, which we can go into next. But I do want to mention and throw this out there. There is also such thing as a simple 401k. And that simple 401k essentially combines what a 401k is with a simple IRA. So in other words, the contribution limit is the same, 13,500 for 2020. It's much more simple to set up, less administration costs, etc. So it just combines the features of a 401k.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And I don't know which one. It may be the SEP, but the other thing, it's very important to sit down and have this conversation about your individual situation, because I know one of these plans, it was like if you took one out for yourself as the business owner, you had to do equal amounts for every employee. And sometimes people didn't think about that, and it kind of got them in a little trouble. So I'm taking it that's still a rule. Do you know which one I'm thinking about?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
And you're one step ahead of me, Roy. I love
Okay,
it.
okay, good. Okay, good. No, that's fine.
No,
I knew it was one, but I couldn't remember if it was the SEP or not. But I'll let you go ahead.
no, you're absolutely right. Yes, it is a SEP to confirm that.
Okay.
So a SEP IRA, for those of you guys who are wondering, you can actually contribute up to $57,000 into a SEP IRA, which is pretty neat. However, like Roy was saying, one of the downsides to a SEP is that you would have to contribute. So let's say you're the employer, right? You're the business owner, and you earn $100,000 and you want to put in $10,000 into your SEP IRA. That's 10% of your salary. So that means if you have other employees working under you, you'll also have to put in 10%
Right.
of their salary, right? So the same percentage of salary for all employees.
Okay.
So absolutely right. Great point.
Yeah.
Basically, for a SEP IRA, there are a couple of things. So first of all, your contribution as the employer, right, can't exceed or cannot exceed the lesser of 25% of your income, so up to $285,000. What that means is if you earn $1 million, you can't contribute 250,000 into it, right? It's only considered up to 285,000.
Okay.
You can, that's the maximum. Or it's 57,000. So it's the lesser of the two, right? 25% of your total compensation or $57,000 for 2020.
Okay.
And the downside, this is a big downside for SEP IRAs, you can't contribute an age 50 catch-up contribution. So typically speaking, age 50 catch-up contributions, I want to say it's like 6,000 or 6,500, something like that for 2020. And we'll go into the solo 401k later on. But the SEP IRA, the maximum you can put in is going to be 57,000, right? And that's without age 50 catch up. So that's kind of a downside.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, SEP IRAs, they're very simple to set up. Contributions, they're tax deductible. So they're kind of like a traditional IRA, right? Whatever you put in, that's deducted from your tax returns. Typically these plans, they're actually good for companies with less than 10 employees. So again, if you have a small business, this might be something that you want to contribute. Again, just keep in mind that if you're the employer, you will have to contribute the same to the employee plans. And this brings us to the next point. Employees cannot contribute. So it might be good for the employer, right? Because you get to control how much goes into those plans, but the employee, maybe not the best because they cannot contribute to their plan. The one thing I do want to say is that, if let's say you do contribute more than the annual limits, because each year the annual limits change, typically they adjust upward due to cost of living adjustments, you'll have to correct that mistake. And the IRS goes into many ways to correct that mistake, but I just want to make sure you guys know if you do contribute more than what's actually acceptable into your SEP plan, you'll have to make that correction and just make sure you consult your CPA or accountant. But otherwise, these are really good plans. And the cool thing is you do not have to commit to contributing every year to these plans.
Right.
There are other plans out there, right? Like, for example, defined contribution plan, you're going to have to contribute every single year. This one, you do not have to. And they're also much less complicated than setting up a 401k. The administration fees are much less. So overall, the SEP IRA is one that I've seen many business owners use. They're a lot more common than simple IRAs because SEPs have that higher contribution limit than simple IRAs. And SEPs are also very easy to manage. They have similar rollover RMD requirements, which are required minimum distributions as your just regular IRA, right? So it's very easy, very simple rules. And I would suggest to definitely look into this if you think that, your business is small, you do want to contribute more money, like let's say 30,000 or more to your retirement plan. This might be the right choice for you.
Right.
Just make sure that, you keep in mind those inflation adjustments, because typically every year your maximum contribution limit does increase by 500 or $1,000. But otherwise, yeah, it's a fantastic plan. Just make sure that you form this on the due date of whatever your employer's tax return. So that means if you're a sole proprietor and you're thinking about forming a SEP IRA, that has to be formed, opened, and typically contributed by April 15th. If you're an LLC or an S Corp, make sure that's opened in time too, which I think is March 16th. So just make sure you consult your accountant in those cases.
Okay, great.
The next plan is a solo 401k. And this one I've seen very often used actually, as much as a SEP IRA essentially. Solo 401ks are a neat tool because in addition to, so like I said, a SEP does not allow age 50 or older catch-up contributions. This is the difference. In a solo 401k, you are allowed age 50 catch-up contributions. So essentially the maximum that you can contribute to a solo 401k is, I think for 2020, $63,000. So it's not bad. The limits are much higher. They are higher than the SEP. However, here's the thing, 401ks, they typically are a little bit more complicated to set up than IRAs. There's a lot more administrative work that goes into it. You'll have basically expenses that they're servicing expenses, right? So you have a plan administrator that administers your 401k, and every year you'll probably have to pay them a little bit. That could be, depending on the plan provider, $500 or a couple $1,000s. It just depends on who you hire to actually administer your 401k. Here's the thing, a solo 401k is only for one business owner, and there is one exception, which I'll go into later. So if you are your own person, if you are a freelancer, for example, that earns a lot of money and you need retirement contributions and it's just you, this could be the plan for you. Again, because it's just one person that's allowed. In a SEP, you could have multiple people working under you. The exception that I was referring to earlier is, let's say you have a partner and you're married, right? So it's a husband, wife, whatever. You can actually have, if your partner works with you in your business, you could add that partner to your solo 401k plan. So both husband, wife, right? Yeah, exactly. So both married partners, they could be contributing to a solo 401k. That's accepted. So you could have two people, as long as they're married, contributing to a 401k. And I actually had a client, he does, I want to say he does like furniture, but he like models the furniture for major hotels. So that's his business. And he and his wife work together. She's kind of like the back office, like she does the paperwork and that stuff. And he actually goes into the hotels and he kind of like models the furniture there for the hotel rooms and the lobbies and all. And they're on a solo 401k plan. So it works well. They earn enough money where both of them can actually max out that top contribution at $63,000, age 50 and up contribution. So it's super good. Again, for people that are just by themselves employed or have husband and wife employed.
Okay, great.
So now comes kind of the cool thing. I was thinking, I'm like, what? I'm so excited about this.
Okay.
So this is for people that maybe are in their 40s, right? Or 50s or early 60s. And they have already established themselves in the industry. They're earning a lot of money in their business. And they are thinking, what can I do to maximize my retirement contributions and tax advantage? What can I do right now? Well, the answer in this case is, let's say you're earning $1 million, you're earning, you're earning 2 million, 3 million, whatever it is, and you don't know how to best optimize your savings, your retirement savings. One option for you could be the defined benefit plan. And the defined benefit plan specifically can help older owners of highly profitable businesses, squeeze basically 20 years of savings into 10 years. Defined benefit plans, they're very similar to pension plans. And honestly, defined benefit plans, you don't hear them much anymore because they've been basically replaced by 401k plans. And for the right small businesses, a defined benefit plan might be the right choice that provides you with the largest retirement contribution and actually the most tax savings possible. So just to little bit of an overview, defined benefit plans, they are 100% funded by the required annual employer investments. Here's the caveat though. There is no maximum annual contribution limit by the IRS. The maximum annual contribution limit is actually set forth and determined by an actuary. So actuaries, you hire them, they assess your business, they assess your age, they assess multiple factors, and they then themselves determine how much the employer, you, would have to contribute to this defined benefit plan.
Interesting.
So that actually when I hear actuary, that means money. So as you can kind of tell, defined benefit plans, they have a lot of administration costs associated with them.
Right.
You'll have to, there's lots of maintenance costs. So there's a lot of money that actually goes into maintaining one. However, it can allow you for far higher contributions than 401ks. So we're actually talking $250,000 in 1 year, right? Like we're talking 6-figure contributions easily per year.
Yeah.
And this is extremely beneficial for those that maybe haven't had the chance. So if my grandparents were listening, right, I would tell them possibly consider this, because they can sock away so much more money into a defined benefit plan, especially in later years when you're earning more money, and still get that tax advantage because it will be tax deductible. And the employers can actually claim a tax credit for the plan startup costs in the first 3 years, just because it is so expensive. So, overall, it's a really cool plan to consider contributing money. We actually had a client who was a social media star, believe it or not. On social media. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Out of all the clients, like this guy was, I think, 40 or 50 years old, super successful on social media, earning probably $4 to $5 million a year.
Wow.
But didn't have a retirement plan in place. And we actually ended up recommending a defined benefit plan to just sock away as much cash as possible and still get that tax deduction. And that's what they ended up doing. And quite frankly, it works, but you have to make sure that you are the right business that it works for.
Right.
So this is one of the last plans. And again, this really works if you have a lot of disposable income, which means you have that cash to put away into retirement plans. But those are kind of the big overviews. I'm happy to go into more depth, like taxes and all that. But generally speaking, the best plans if you're self-employed is, your simple IRA, which is a smaller contribution limit than others, $13,500. The next step is your SEP IRA, which has a limit of $57,000, no catch-up contributions. Then the next step is the solo 401k, where you do have catch-up contributions if you're 50 or older. So that means you can easily contribute up to $63,000 or more, depending on the year. The next step up from there would probably be that defined benefit plan, where you can contribute 6 figures easily into that plan per year.
Okay. And, I hope I'm not misspeaking here, but I want to relate these back also to your grandparents just a little bit and say,
sure,
if I'm not mistaken, since these are retirement accounts and they are set aside basically in the person's name, I think that adds a little bit of protection, if I'm not wrong, doesn't it? That if you have been putting your money away let's just take a SEP. You put your money back in a SEP, and then let's say something happens. You either get sick, your business goes under, whatever. That money is protected against your creditors coming after. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes. So retirement accounts and funds in general, they are actually protected from creditors.
Okay.
Most plans like 401ks, for example, they are protected. You do want to be careful though, because there's this thing called ERISA, which basically it's known as the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. In other words, it's an organization that monitors to make sure that you follow compliance rules, right? So you contribute that in a SEP IRA. If you contribute 10% and you have employees working under you, that you also contribute 10% to them based on their salary. So if you don't follow those rules, chances are, if you do have creditors, that might get into a little bit of a conundrum. But as long as you have an ERISA plan that falls under those guidelines, right, then chances are they are, well, not chances are, they are protected from creditors.
Okay.
Non-ERISA plans like Roth IRAs, they do not have that same level of creditor protection. So that's very important to distinguish. And even more so, like if you have a sole proprietorship, right? So if it's in your own name, in other words, like whatever income you make from your business flows directly to your income tax return, you have a much higher probability of being kind of ousted to creditors if there is, bankruptcy or anything like that, or even a sue, like if someone's suing you, that could be a possibility. So honestly, I would suggest if you are earning money from a business and you're a sole proprietor, try to consider doing a dual member LLC, or even an S corp is a little bit more complicated, but something to help add that creditor protection. And the reason why I say dual member LLC is because typically speaking, dual member LLCs, they have more protection against creditors than single member LLCs. And I didn't know that at first either, but I was talking to an accountant and they actually verified that for me. And I was really surprised to hear it. But yeah, so just make sure you take those extra steps for creditor protection.
Right.
Definitely a great point.
Yeah, and I think, I think if you follow the rules and do what you're supposed to, because, there's all kinds of examples of people that try to hide money in these, and of course, you're not going to get away with that. But I think it just, not only your grandparents' story, but also this pandemic, there have been so many people that, prior to 2020 were rocking along, small business, life is good, and then now all of a sudden, they've lost their income, they've lost their business, and if you would just think, if you had been putting some money away in a SEP for, 10, 20 years, you would at least have a little bit of cushion. Maybe some people maybe have even retired through all of this. So anyway, it's just very important to get started and do it early. My advice, and I think you would second this, is seek out licensed professionals to help you in all of these steps to make sure that you're following the guidelines, because just like myself, I have a finance degree and I could probably do my own taxes and be pretty good, but I don't, because they send out tax bulletins to these tax professionals all the time throughout the year. It's a constant learning process. And so, as the same with investment advisors, seek out licensed professionals, because there's always changes going on with these accounts, and they can help walk you through to make sure that you're doing everything that you should be doing to keep you out of trouble later on.
Yeah, you make a really, really good point. And I just want to, back that up and echo what you said, Roy. I mean, the fact, again, although I do have, like you, my certifications and all, but I don't have my taxes. I don't do my own taxes, not at all. I have an accountant do my taxes. I do not manage my own investment accounts because it's funny, actually. I read the statistics somewhere that if you're an investment manager, for example, or a financial planner or accountant, chances are you do your own taxes, your own investment planning, financial planning worse than you do for your clients, because we have that bias, right? Because it's our own money. We need that third party view. We need that unbiased third party professional. And that's why, Roy, what you said is so true. Like, make sure you seek out the people, the right professionals, the accredited ones. Even if you are really specialized in an area, chances are it's probably better for you if you find someone else to help you.
Yeah, you just need to mess up once to have all of what you've done be evaporated. So that's why it's just not worth taking a chance. And like my tax preparer, I know that she usually finds me more deductions because she's up on the law than what I would know, trying to go through one of these computerized tax generating things that you go through, where they ask very generic questions, because each and every individual, each and every business is really different, has its own aspects, its own needs, whether you're 20 and starting out or whether you're 50 and getting close to the end, and anybody in between. So please, again, you can never go wrong by having great support staff around you, accountant, financial advisors, lawyers. Just seek out good, reputable people in those areas.
That's right.
Yeah.
I could not agree more.
Well, Fiona, I'm certainly glad that you taken time out of your day to be with us. This has been very interesting, and I hope that we can get this message over to some of our smaller solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, small businesses. This is going to be so so helpful for them, when they get to the age where they want to retire. And I know we don't think about that a lot in our youth, but unfortunately, it sneaks up on all of us. One day you wake up and you're 50 and wonder where all the time is gone. So get started when you're young. Don't let it sneak up on you.
That's exactly right, Roy. Don't be like that client I was talking to where she said her past is catching up. Start
Right.
now, and even if it's a little, just
Right.
start.
So, what is a tool that you use in your daily life, either professional, personal? It's a tool, habit, ritual, just something that you do every day that you don't think you could do without.
Definitely. It's funny that you ask that because I was thinking about it earlier, and it's a habit that I learned. I want to say back when I was like 18 or 19, and it is physically writing down goals. And not just that, so for example, I had a goal to graduate college at the top of my class, and I wrote that goal down. I stuck it onto my mirror, my bathroom mirror, and every day, I mean, probably 3, 4, 5 times a day or whatnot, I saw that note every single day, and I made that happen. And not only that, but other goals that I try to set my mind to, be it short term, be it long term. I write down sticky notes, and I try to keep it to like 4 or 5 sticky notes, right? Put it on my bathroom mirror, and I actually see those every single day. And some people might say this is a little bit overkill, and I appreciate that. That's fine. But for me personally, I'm a very visual learner. And I understand myself, right? I know that I am visual, and that's the best way I'm able to accomplish whatever I want to accomplish. And so knowing myself in that regard kind of led me to write down my goals in short sentences, put it on the mirror. And because I see that every single day, I'm reminded. I'm always constantly reminded. And then being able to take off a sticky note and throw it into the trash because I accomplished that goal.
Right.
Roy, oh my gosh, it is the best feeling in the world because it's like I actually did it. Like I accomplished that. So yeah, it's so funny because I don't think that would be the first thing that most people would say, but writing down and visualizing goals and putting them in an area where you see them every day, be it on your nightstand, on your car dashboard, whatever it is, that is so helpful and has been vital to help me accomplish some of the goals that I have.
No, that's great. And what they say, like a goal that's not written down is just a dream or something like that. So, I mean, we've got to write them down. And I'm like you, I use a lot of times 3x5 cards for my to-do list. And the other day I let out a big old Yahoo or Scream or something. My girlfriend's like, "What's wrong?" I said, "I just checked something off my list." I mean, I get excited when you knock those things out. But, I think to your point about your goals and your dreams and keeping them in front of you is that, there are days that I personally wake up tired or not really feeling it, or maybe have a chance to go goof off or something like that. And, when you see that thing that you need to accomplish or want to accomplish, it can kind of bring you into a refocus to be like, hey, you know what? I'm so close to this. I need to really push through. Or I think they can be very, very beneficial. So that's awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to hear I'm not the only one.
Yeah,
So that's awesome, Roy.
no. I got stuff written all over the place.
I love it.
Well, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, or I know that you have a website with some information. So just let everybody know how they can interact with you.
Yeah, definitely. So first and foremost, like you said, Roy, the website, anyone can reach me there. It's themillennialmoneywoman.com. I write posts probably 2 to 3 times a week, and my email address is there, themillennialmoneywoman@gmail.com. I love interacting and engaging, so definitely reach out. Get to know me. I'd love to hear from you. The second option is if you guys are a Twitter fan, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter, and my handle is @the_MMW. And if you guys are Pinterest lovers, then you can always reach out to me at the Millennial Money Woman on Pinterest. And I'm always happy to reach out and engage.
All right. Awesome. Well, it's been a great conversation again. Thank you so much. Y'all reach out and see what Fiona has to say. I know it's very enlightening, and we appreciate your time very much. So
Thank you so much.
that'll be all for today. Again, this is the Business of Business podcast. You can find us at thebusinessofbusinesspodcast.com. We are also on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can also find the podcast itself. You can either go to the website. I have a player that I put on there, or iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pandora, and Spotify. All of those, all the big platforms, go there. I will also post all of Fiona's information on the web page as well, with all the ways that you can reach out and contact her. So again, thank you very much. Until next time, this is Roy. Take care.